What are the most common objections to doing a therapeutic disclosure?
So Dan, do you want to like me take partner and you take?
Sure.
Yeah. Not much. I need truth. Okay. I need truth. When's the disclosure?
Yeah.
It might be that I'm really afraid in our Dan's and I personal research, some of it about I'm afraid of what's unknown.
Yeah.
That it might be more than I can handle. For some women, it's in our research, the partners were almost exclusively women.
Mm-hmm.
But for some of them, it's I'm afraid of like actually having to hear all the things I've already heard. And then it's just going to be too much if I hear it all together. But the biggest one is I'm afraid he'll still lie.
Okay. I do want to hear Dan's objections too, but how do we handle the whole, well, can't he just lie again on a therapeutic disclosure? I mean, do you guys include polygraph in part of your encouragement of the process?
Yeah. I don't require it, but yes,
encourage it.
I'm openly a polygraph girl for lots of reasons.
How about you, Dan? Are you a polygraph guy?
I will say I'm a polygraph guy. I give the choice up to every couple that goes through this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really my place because you can look online and people come up with their own, a lot of reading that they'll do on polygraphs. And I understand it's a controversial topic in our field. I've seen over the years, though, I've seen them very valuable for both parties, actually, not just for the partner, but I've seen it as a way of another way that the person who's doing the disclosing really, when they know the polygraph is there, they really do a deep dive into this preparation. They really want to make sure they turn over every stone. They don't give it, they give their full effort, where sometimes they may do a, quote, good enough job, which may not be, as detailed or specific, but they really get some motivation when they know there's a polygraph. And I find it also, there's sometimes, let's say it's early on, we could talk for hours about polygraph, by the way, but and it always comes up, but there's also the situation that may happen sometimes where someone who's earlier on in their recovery or healing process, they may be kind of in a fog still. As they're coming out of their behaviors, they may not remember everything perfectly, or not like anyone remembers perfectly, but they may have some memory gaps, compartmentalized information. So
Yes.
if we're doing a disclosure early on, which is a whole other question, when do we do these things, right? But let's say we're doing it early on, there's a chance that there's some information that after doing the disclosure, he realizes, man, I forgot this thing. There's something that happened, and I completely, as I'm in further recovery, my kind of memory, my integrity is fully more online. There's more things I remember. Now what happens when he comes, does he keep that secret from his partner and say, oh shoot, there was this thing that I forgot to say. If I share it, then what happens? So I found if the person does the polygraph, it's more likely that the partner believes after the fact that this was recovered truth rather than withheld truth. So that is a big benefit I've seen of a polygraph. Plus just the willingness to do it says, you know what,
Absolutely.
Your safety is so important to me, spouse, partner, that whatever you need to heal, I'm going to do. I might feel
I've got nothing to hide.
I'm scared. I've got nothing to hide. I've got nothing to fear. Or this thing may be scary in and of itself. And that's okay. It's normal to be afraid of the polygraph. Like, I get it. But we're doing fidelity polygraphs, not forensic polygraphs. Everybody in here, big difference. We all, it gives an opportunity for the person to tell the full honest truth, not try and catch them in a lie. And there's a big difference. We're trying, everyone wants this thing to succeed. And so anyway, I'm a polygraph guy. That's the short of it.
I've seen addicts who are like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I have this it's kind of like a backup for if I ever have that little voice in my head that says just this once, like, what's the big deal? Right. She'll never know. No, she will, because a lot of couples will do a maintenance annual follow-up polygraph, not a full disclosure, but so for some guys, it's like the most legit form of accountability.
And I think it's a good way of looking. Sorry, go ahead, Janice.
I'm going to say, I don't think it's just some guys. I mean, the research that Dan and I did, but when we rate who gets the biggest gains from a polygraph, it's not the partner. is the addict. And I
Which
think
is
that's
so interesting because I know
Counterintuitive.
for when partners find out that like that's a legit thing, like a polygraph is an option, at first they're like, wait, what? This is a thing? Because it's not widely known in the world, right? That you can actually have this as a part of your therapeutic process. It is so relieving. I can finally take off my detective hat and leave this in the hands of the professionals. So
Can
go
I
ahead,
say one
Dan.
thing on that? And Janice
Yes.
has, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Janice, but I love the way you talk about the burden. So there's a burden of truth
yeah.
that's here. I think Janice does a really good job of explaining that, for polygraph or not. And would you mind sharing that? I think you explained it
Well,
really well.
I assume you're talking about who's gonna carry the greater consequences.
Right.
Because everybody's worried about a false positive, a polygraph that might actually, and I think the stats are about 87%. There's a 80%, 7% accuracy rate. So there's a legitimate concern about, I could take this, tell the truth and not pass. And that's truth. And so we have to kind of be sensitive to that. It's not 100% going to catch things. And that's a reality. And so I don't want to invalidate that that's a legitimate concern for somebody stepping up to take a polygraph. But what people forget is, well, who holds the consequences if he doesn't? Now, the partner is sitting there having to try to sometimes become a human lie detector. And you can't be a human lie detector. There's always this doubt that's there, particularly after the types of things that go on in the addiction, in the recovery. My God, the recovery is sometimes harder, than before. The gaslighting, like partners get really kind of doubtful or disconnected from their own intuition. So with polygraphs are actually helpful for more than just what the obvious. It's really helpful for a partner beginning to connect with their own intuition and getting to say, I don't have to be a human lie detector anymore. Because that's crazy making. That strips us of our soul. And so I think it's really important that we also acknowledge, I get the concerns that many professionals, many of our couples maybe have about, the possible negative implications of a polygraph. If you choose not to do something, you're leaving in that entire burden of uncertainty on the partner's back.
Can I make my pitch to men here real quick? For those listening, I mean, we hear all kinds of stuff, and I get it. It's always an individual decision around something like polygraph. We're talking about that right now, or disclosure for that matter. I mean, it's always going to be your choice. Sometimes I talk to men and they feel backed into a corner, like they don't have a choice. It's either that or it's an ultimatum. Either you do this or I'm done. What I would really encourage you, all this is about safety. It's reestablishing a foundation of honesty and truth in the relationship. It's all about really helping your partner feel safe and then ultimately starting to build trust back in the relationship. So, if the polygraph is one thing that your partner is asking for as a way for her to start feeling more safety, for you to do whatever it takes to show that you're willing to help her heal, to me, it's a small ask. I mean, and I hear some people saying like, man, if we're at the point in our relationship where you need a polygraph and we're there, then maybe this, is it worth it? I can't believe we're there. And they feel controlled or they feel, whatever, backed into a corner. So that the reality is your partner, if you're like most couples, your partner got blindsided through discovery, and she didn't know what was coming, and she's trying to figure out what the base, what the bottom of this is. She's kind of free falling, trying to find a foundation of truth and where the bottom lands. So all this is a way of reestablishing a new foundation in the relationship. And so my strong recommendation is to really take that into consideration. It can be, in our own fear of doing something that's scary or challenging ourselves, it's sometimes we want to discount all this and find reasons not to do it. And we hear that all the time, but I thought it was all extreme when I first started this work, doing a disclosure with a polygraph. I mean, that sounds like a lot, pretty extreme. And yet, I never set out to write a book or, work on all these resources with anybody on disclosure. And yet I've seen the value so much over the years for this process that I'm so grateful that Janice and I could work on this to provide a safe way to go through the